Before we get started today, I would just like to send my thoughts and prayers to everyone impacted by the senseless acts of violence in New York City. An unfortunate reminder of the realities our first responders face every single day. Love being sent to all the families that have been impacted. In better news, the Carolina Panthers offense is finally taking form. That was the case Monday, even the case today. The Panthers were not in pads on Tuesday, but it was a padded bunch on Monday, and the offense seemed to be going off. I still want to see a little more from Tetero and McMillan. Still want to see a little more from Bryce Young, who concluded 2024 on such a hot streak. But finally, the offense getting some love. Tetero McMillan actually was depicted on the NFL's social media. They tweeted out a post of the rookie wide receiver hauling in a ball. Didn't get much separation on the route, if I'm being hard on him, and I will be because he's the 8th overall pick. But he used his body, controlled the ball to the ground, got enough separation on Mike Jackson, who was in coverage, and earned love across the league when they tweeted out T-Mac making the play on the NFL's social media. Look, the expectations for Tetero McMillan are quite high. He was taken in the top 10 of the draft. Since 2021, there's been 8 wide receivers taken in the top 10. They average, in their rookie seasons, 79 catches, 1,000 yards, and 6 tutties. That is an elite class of wide receivers, and that is why it's expected that Tetero McMillan, who concluded his college career with 2 consecutive 1,300-yard seasons, makes an immediate impact on the gridiron on Sundays. The impact should be immediate for T-Mac. And this list of receivers, I was up all night. Seriously. I was trying to go to bed, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go on Wikipedia and look at draft selections in the past. And I made this list of all the receivers taken since 2021 in the top 10. A ton of different names here. There's really only 2 guys I wouldn't be content with having. In other words, if T-Mac has a similar season to Rome Odunze or Drake London, their rookie years were subpar, in my opinion. Rome Odunze had 700 yards receiving sneakily, but he's not the Batman in the Chicago receiving corps. DJ Moore is. And they wouldn't take Luther Burden in the second round if they felt so comfortable in Rome Odunze taking the next step in 2025. With that said, I think T-Mac, who was drafted with the expectation that he would make an immediate impact. Again, this isn't a developmental project. This isn't Drake London. Drake London had 1,200 yards in 2024, but it took him a while to get his feet wet. As a rookie, he had 72 catches and 866 yards and 4 touchdowns. Nothing to scoff at. Nothing to scoff at, but Drake London didn't have the college production that T-Mac had. He was young, one of the youngest players ever drafted, if not the youngest player ever drafted. It was around there. He was taken as a developmental project who they knew had infinite potential. His production's nothing to scoff at, but again, T-Mac's not that type of player. T-Mac wasn't brought in because you think 3 years from now he can be the best receiver in football. He was brought in to help Bryce Young right here, right now, in July, and splitting reps with Mike Jackson is not sufficient. It should be utter dominance from the Panthers' rookie wide receiver. Maybe I'm being too hard on him. Let me know in the comments. But I think with how they have built this, the expectation is that T-Mac makes an immediate impact. I use the analogy, it's like when you get your kids a Christmas present. T-Mac's the one big gift we were given. We got one Xbox. We got one GameCube. I remember when I got a GameCube for Christmas. That was the one gift. Everything else is socks. Like clothes. And that's how the Panthers have spent the money this offseason. They've gotten a bunch of socks and clothes, bunch of good starters, but the one guy you've really made the investment in, hence you spent the 8th overall pick on him, is T-Mac. The expectation is that the impact is immediate. No waiting. No waiting. This other class of players, those taken in the top 10, it's an elite class of receivers. Marvin Harrison Jr., Garrett Wilson, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. There's a couple guys on there like Jalen Waddle, who is a great talent, but the injury history scares me. Waddle had over 100 catches, 1,000 yards, and 6 touchdowns as a rookie. Great number. Unbelievable numbers, but again, injury history scares me. I would hope that T-Mac's a little more consistent, at least with his presence on the field, than Jalen Waddle. If he's Jamar Chase, if he's Malik Neighbors, Garrett Wilson, one of the best rookie seasons in recent memory, he had 1,100 yards and 4 touchdowns on a Jets offense that was disastrous. Malik Neighbors, similar situation, in the same location, New York, had 1,200 yards, 109 catches, and 7 touchdowns last season. And then Jamar Chase, who I think is a once-in-a-decade talent, I wouldn't hold T-Mac to the standard that he has to be Jamar Chase. That's too much. That's too much. Too high of a bar to hold for any wide receiver. But needless to say, this is the class of player that the Panthers consider T-Mac to be in. When they took him at 8th overall, they saw these other names. They saw Devontae Smith. They saw Jamar Chase. They saw these other players. They know exactly what's going on. And the expectation is that when he comes in, especially week 1, he's a threat to have a 100-yard game week in and week out. But how about this guy? Xavier Legette. Been the story of the offseason, the Glorilla video, the Guy Fieri interview. Legette has been in the limelight, in the spotlight, 100%. I think the clock is ticking for Xavier Legette. I really do. Because I look at this Panthers wide receiver room and I see talent everywhere. Hunter Renfrow said it yesterday. One of the most talented rooms he's ever been a part of. And you look at guys like Jalen Coker, who's clawing and scratching to make the roster. You would never think you'd be saying that about Jalen Coker, who flashed last year and even averaged more yards per game at 43.5 than Xavier Legette, who averaged 31. This is a group of wide receivers that are going to be clawing and fighting for spots on that depth chart. Now you throw Hunter Renfrow's name in the mix. David Moore at 350 yards. I'll throw his name in there. If there is not an impact that is felt by Xavier Legette, if he doesn't come out of the gate swinging, I think he becomes disposable. I think he falls down the depth chart. I don't think Canales has any problem pushing him behind Jalen Coker or giving reps to Hunter Renfrow or underdog Jimmy Horn Jr., whoever it may be. And I think Legette knows that. I think that's why you see all these videos of him going around training really hard. You see the videos and the reports of him on the jugs machine after practice. He's staying long hours. This isn't last year. This isn't the Carolina Panthers that have a depleted receiving core that are giving 90% of snaps to rookie Jonathan Mingo. This is not that Carolina Panthers team. They have bona fide talent. I'd say the only position group on the roster with more talent is the offensive line. Maybe the D-line. Maybe interior defensive line. That receiving core is loaded. There's a bunch of wide receiver 2s and 3s. Hopefully T-Mac's your bona fide wide receiver 1. Hopefully he is your Garrett Wilson, maybe Jamar Chase. I don't know. I pray before I go to bed at night. You have a bunch of talent in this room, and I think Xavier Legette feels the clock ticking for that reason. Monday, he did have a nice rep on Jaycee Horn, who got dusted. And then it was funny, Jaycee Horn actually tweeted out asking the Panthers social media to show all the reps, not just the one where Xavier Legette makes the play. And maybe Jaycee Horn has a point. I will say this. There's not going to be this near litigation, this almost feels like you're in a room with lawyers when they defend Xavier Legette as the first round selection for the Panthers in 2024. You're not going to have that if this guy does not produce early on. And I'm not speaking it into existence, but Jalen Coker, Adam Thielen, Hunter Renfrow, David Moore, all these are guys that are fighting for reps. And Xavier Legette's not going to get grandfathered in for 17 games if he doesn't outperform these players. Finally, I heard what I needed to hear from Hunter Renfrow. Here is the clip.
So really 2021, I remember we made the playoffs that year. And I remember late in the season being like, I'm tired for some reason. Like, I'm really tired. Didn't think much of it because we made the playoffs. I remember taking like a month off and then going to the Pro Bowl and being like, I don't want to go run a route. I'm gassed. I'm tired.
This is important. This is very important to know. The reports when Renfrow left Vegas centered around the route running. It was all themed around this guy losing a step on the routes, looking slow, looking lazy. And they were saying this in Vegas in 2022 and 2023. He looked like a shell of himself. And that's why it's very important to know that this is something that Renfrow unfortunately has been dealing with. This autoimmune condition, ulcerative colitis, has impacted him since 2021, all the way back to the playoffs. He's been dealing with this, and I take him at his word. I believe that's the case. And that's why I believe, like Dabo Sweeney believes, like many of us believe, that this is the best version of Hunter Renfrow that there has been since 2021. Since that Pro Bowl season where he had 103 catches, 1,000 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Freaking insane numbers from Renfrow. And they gave him the big contract after that. Renfrow said it was such a juxtaposition from what he was feeling because at the time he felt so sluggish. Yet they're sitting here offering him the contract and he's trying to put on makeup, put lipstick on the pig, if you would, just to justify the amount Vegas paid him. That's when it all went downhill, when he got that big contract extension. And now he finally feels comfortable. His treatment plan is consistent. He's healed. And the former Clemson standout and walk-on has more confidence than ever. And I was low on Renfrow. I said, I've lived through this experience a million times in training camp. How many dang training camps are we going to go through where there's some hero wide receiver? Last year was Terrace Marshall Jr., looks like Randy Moss. Do you see Jonathan Mingo out there? Literally Calvin Johnson. That's what they were saying last year about this receiving core. It drove me nuts. I thought Renfrow was going to be similar in that same breath where they just throw his name around. Canales loves his underdogs. He'll sign the power forward literally from Coastal Carolina who hasn't played football since 8th grade just so he can tell you that he has Rudy on the team. I thought a lot of that was happening. I thought it was a good PR story. I thought Renfrow was the story you put out there to get everyone to feel good. Look at us. We give guys second chances, and we're a place of divinity and positivity. We're Carolina. We're Charlotte, Carolina. That's what I thought was going on, but clearly this is a guy that can play. Beating Trevon Moehrig. Canales even said Renfrow has looked good as a returner. Mike K tweeted out, Renfrow just made a diving catch in traffic from Andy Dalton, who, hey, has looked really good so far in training camp. He's having himself a summer, writes Mike K. Hashtag Panthers. This is a guy that looks like he's ready to make the comeback of the ages in Charlotte, Hunter Renfrow. This is my dark horse in the Panthers roster. Jatavian Sanders is my dark horse. If I woke up in 2026 and read a headline that Sanders was headed to the Pro Bowl, I would not be surprised. For the first time in his athletic career, he is being pushed to the limits. He was a 5-star recruit in high school. He was a stud, standout tight end at Texas, where he was one of the best tight ends in the nation. I think last year was a rude awakening for him in many ways. He made plays. He looked the part. Got hurt late in the season. When he was on the field, he looked good. Now he's lost weight. In his words, his nuts have dropped and he's stopped eating Taco Bell. I think Jatavian Sanders could be a candidate for a breakout season. 700 yards would not surprise me. Doubling his statistics from a year ago. He only had the 1 touchdown, but 300 yards receiving roughly. If he doubled that, let's call it 704 touchdowns. If that's tight end 1 in Carolina, I would not be surprised. I believe in this guy. I think he could emerge more than anyone in that 2024 class. And we'll group Damani Richardson in there. We'll group Cha Smith-Wade. Jonathan Brooks, obviously out for the season. Xavier Legette, first-round pick. Trevin Wallace, a guy who's going to be in a big role because of the concussion issues and the later release of Josie Jewell. If Sanders is the bright spot, the silver lining of that 2024 class, completely unsurprised. I think he makes a second-year leap, and I think it's important, too. He's faster, Sheena Quick tweeted it out. Moving like a wide receiver, Sheena says. The report generally is that he's looking faster. He's about 10 pounds lighter, and he looks more solid. Like, last season, he had a doughboy build a little bit. A little bit chubby, a little overweight, but could still move fast. And he's so gifted. That's the thing. He's so gifted physically that I think in many ways he's benefited from not being able to, it not being necessary for him to fine-tune the diet and get on the program, if you would. He hasn't needed to do that. He hasn't needed to eat the avocado ice cream and the pecans. He hasn't needed to go and do cardio at 8 p.m. He's just been so good. And last season, I don't think he expected to have the role he had, especially at the beginning of the year, due to injuries, which once again are plaguing that tight end room with Tommy Tremble experiencing some back issues and a cleanup surgery that was unexpected earlier this offseason. I think he's more well-equipped this year. I think he's putting in immense amounts of effort. And if this is a guy that takes the next step, if this is a player that really puts on, and Canales likes the tight end. Cade Otton, the guy in Tampa Bay, made plays while he was there. And I think he fits Canales' vision. I remember last season, they didn't say it this year, and they have brought in Mitchell Evans, who is a bit of a mauler, but he could also catch. I think Canales, based on prior conversations in 2024, he likes that tight end that you can split out wide, that's fast, that's uber athletic. That's his type of tight end. And Sanders is fitting that mold more now than ever. He's faster, he's quick. Speaking of fast, Jimmy Horn Jr. Oh my gosh, we're 20 minutes in and I haven't even mentioned this guy. Still flying around, out there beat, Moehrig in coverage. Moehrig's getting beat a lot. I don't know if it's just the videos that are going out, but Trevon Moehrig is getting dusted by all these guys, it seems. And we need him to cover. The Panthers need him to be good in coverage after giving him a big 3-year, $51 million contract this offseason. Jimmy Horn Jr. making plays. A little bit of a derailing of the Horn Jr. train, if you would, when Canales called Renfrow a punt returner. When you're a fringe roster wide receiver, how do you make the team? Either athletic and receiving ability, or the ability to do other things, whether you're a gunner, a receiver, whatever it may be. And hearing that Renfrow could be the punt returner, and he's an established punt returner at the NFL level, could be concerning for Horn. However, Canales did compare the 5'8", 174-pound Horn to Devin Tompkins. He, I believe, played in 7 games for the Panthers last year, came over with Canales from Tampa, and he's that gadget player. And really, at this point, the only receiver that fits that mold is Jimmy Horn Jr., which I think's promising. I heard Alex Zetlow of The Observer talking about it this morning. They might keep 7 receivers on the roster. I would be surprised few teams do it. And it wouldn't be 7 guys suiting up on game day. It would be 7 guys as a part of the 53-man active roster. It would surprise me, but considering that Canales is juicing all these guys, if you would, seems to like what he sees from Horn Jr., likes what he sees from Renfrow, and who knows, he's never going to cut David Moore. Get out of here. He's a superstar in the Canales book. I could see Jimmy Horn Jr. among 6 other receivers making the Panthers roster in 2024. Okay, we're going to go to break quick. Couple other stories I want to get to. The offense has been the main story, but there's always more in Charlotte, folks. Tetairoa McMillan needs 1,000 yards this season, and I need to record 1,000 hours of the tone, and I could not do it without you. It takes a team to debunk the myths of Panthers.com. We're the only ones that are equipped to do this together.
I got the recipe, I got the flow, I got the remedy.
This is the tone, and I haven't talked about the quarterback yet. I'm going to table the Bryce Young discussion. I'm going to table it because I want to wait to hear more. Look, at this point last season, Dave Canales was calling Bryce Young streaky. There was all sorts of passive-aggressive comments coming from the coach at that point in time. And that eventually culminated with Bryce Young getting benched. Canales didn't have much faith in the quarterback. It was a group decision to bench Bryce Young at the time. But needless to say, things were a lot different in the summer of 2024. Bryce Young's performance so far hasn't been streaky, hasn't been bad. But they've only had 1 real day in pads, and we need more time to see the tape on the field, if you would. Things are on the up and up, though, for sure. I found this interesting. Derek Brown answering a question from Joe Person, and here's the clip.
A team that could surprise people, but when we talked to Dan, he kind of didn't want to put it in those terms. What do you think about kind of getting this playoff drought ended this year?
I say don't doubt us. Don't doubt us. You got a lot of hungry people out here, so if that's what people want to say, it is one thing. But I mean, just inside the building, everybody believes, and that's more dangerous. So, I'm excited to see what this team holds.
I find that part, inside the building, everyone believes. Brown clearly talking about the coaching staff, talking about the players, and Morgan facing criticism for that State of the Union press conference statement he gave last week. He did not mention playoffs or even winning, for that matter, as a primary goal of the team. And here is the exact quote. This season, our goals are clear: improve our consistency, develop our young core, and compete with a team-first mindset. Winning's not in there. Making the playoffs not in there. Develop our young core, a fundamental goal of the Panthers front office. And I call that corporate Carolina. Because I think what Derek Brown's referring to in that clip is the locker room. It's Jaycee Horn. It's him shouldering guys into lockers jokingly and messing around in the locker room. Every player in there wants to win. And I think you hear that reciprocated everywhere. Especially amongst guys like Derek Brown, who's a leader, veteran, captain last year, a mid-20s, late 20s across the offensive line with Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. A few other players on this team. Not getting up there in age, no, but older players that aren't necessarily vested in developing the young core. I don't think Robert Hunt gets up and out of bed in the morning and says, I want to develop today. He wants to win. Same with Derek Brown. Same with Jaycee Horn. I don't think they look themselves in the mirror brushing their teeth in the morning and go, dude, I just need to develop. That's my primary goal in 2025. Develop. And I think there is a little bit of dissonance between the team and the front office's approach going into the 2025 season, which is this very lackadaisical, here's right from the horse's mouth, Panthers.com, an article written after the team released Josey Jewell this past weekend. I believe it came out on Saturday. From Panthers.com, headline, next man up. Linebackers learning to adjust on the fly one day into camp. So right off the bat, I go, this sounds like reactive. It sounds like something you would read week 8, right? Learning to adjust on the fly. Everyone jumping around, like the scene in The Office where there's a fire. Guys, put it together. Get together. Quick. Get it together right now. So that's what they're screaming in the Panthers locker room. And then the article goes on. The Panthers don't have a lot of experience, talking about inside linebacker. I'm going to butcher every single one of these names. Claudin Chirelius and Jacoby Windman each started 2 games last year. But otherwise, the inside linebacking core behind Trevin Wallace and Christian Roseboom is John Radigan, no starts on defense in 4 seasons, and undrafted rookies Bam Martin Scott and Tuasivi Nomura. Canales, perpetually positive, called the group very talented. Aggressive, very athletic, and very talented. This is your inside linebacking core behind Trevin Wallace and Christian Roseboom. No experience, a very difficult position to play, lots of injuries, lots of hits. It's unlikely that Roseboom and Trevin Wallace are on the field 100% of snaps for 17 games. That's unlikely. Bam Martin Scott, undrafted rookie from South Carolina, I believe. This is one of the guys that you're counting on game day. There's no Josey Jewell replacement plan. Panthers.com is literally telling you, no, we're doing this on the fly. Dan Morgan said it last week. The answer's on the roster. I think he said it begrudgingly because I think Canales and Morgan both know that the defense needs more talent and that you can still be developmentally minded and sign a guy like Julian Blackmon or sign a linebacker to replace Josey Jewell. You can still be developmentally minded and keep Jatavian Clowney on the roster as a veteran presence that allows Princely McMillan and Nick Scorton to develop at edge. You can still have bona fide proven talent and develop. They're not mutually exclusive. It's unbelievable that they think this way. And I think it is a little bit of propaganda. And I think Dan Morgan deep down knows there's a little bit of cheapness going on. And they're just being cheap. And he's regurgitating stuff he doesn't even believe in. I don't think he believes that it's the best thing for the team to rely on Bam Martin Scott behind Christian Roseboom and Trevin Wallace. Come on. There's no way he believes that. Or have Claudin Chirelius or Jacoby Windman on the field. Like, that's the best thing for the Panthers defense. Ejiro Evero, who's coaching for his job, is confident rolling out Bam Martin Scott at inside linebacker. I find that very tough to believe. And it's a storyline that's not nationally accredited, something that's not being talked about. Stephen A. Smith talking about the Panthers in the playoffs. Rich Eisen, I believe, said Panthers are his underdog candidate. National media pundits high on the Panthers. And I think that's a really good thing. I love the fact that the Panthers have positive press at the national level. But you should hold them accountable. We should all be picketing right now saying, why aren't you doing more at linebacker? Why are you too good to offer Jair Alexander a contract? Why are you above that? Why are you above keeping Jatavian Clowney on the roster? Like, you're running a football team. It's not a church camp. It's not a church camp. It's not lights out at 7 o'clock. You can have tough personalities. You can have veterans who can actually play the game and still develop your quote-unquote young core. You can have both. You can have both. And there is a reliance on undrafted players, on unproven talent, on that defense. And I'm going to keep preaching to the choir here. It concerns me. There are concerns on defense in Carolina. This is The Tone. Thank you so much for spending your Tuesday with me. We'll be back again this week. Special guest, I teased it. He'll be on the show. You wait.